Okay, so have you ever heard your own voice on like a recording and been like, whoa, is that really what I sound like?
Yeah,
I feel like everyone's had that experience.
definitely.
That's kind of what we're diving into today. Why does our voice sound so different to us when we hear it played back versus how we hear it when we're actually speaking?
It really is one of those universal experiences where you hear yourself and you're like,
Right.
wait a minute.
Yeah. Almost disturbing.
Like, is that
Hey,
what I really sound like?
yeah, is this what everyone else has been hearing this whole time?
But the good news is there is a reason for it.
Oh,
And
good.
it all has to do with sound and how our ears work.
I'm very curious to find out more about this.
Okay.
So what is it about our ears that's like playing these tricks on us?
Well, we actually hear our voice in two different ways.
Hmm.
It's not just one way that we hear our voice, it's two ways. And these are called air conduction and bone conduction.
Is this like a superpower?
No, but it is pretty cool.
Oh.
So if you think about it, air conduction is how we hear most sounds. So whether that's someone talking to us or you're listening to music or a dog barking,
Mm-hmm.
any sound really, it travels through the air, it hits our eardrum, and then those vibrations in our eardrum send signals to our brain, and we interpret that as sound.
So that's how we hear the world, like all the outside.
Yeah, the outside world.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So where does bone conduction come into play?
Bone conduction happens every time we speak. So when our vocal cords vibrate, those vibrations travel through the air, but they also travel through the bones in our skull.
So you're saying like my skull is like a little musical instrument?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And what happens is those vibrations travel through the bones, bypass the eardrum altogether, and go straight to the inner ear.
Wow.
And bone conduction tends to emphasize lower frequencies, so it makes our voice sound deeper and richer to ourselves.
Okay, so is that why when I hear myself in a voicemail, it sounds like almost like I just inhaled a bunch of helium?
Exactly.
It sounds so high-pitched.
Exactly. So you're hearing your voice without that bone conduction added in.
So I'm missing that bass.
You're missing the bass, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's why it sounds so different, because when we hear our own voice, we're so used to hearing it with that bone conduction.
So it's not that like my recorded voice is bad. It's just I'm used to hearing this like VIP, backstage version of my own voice because of the bone conduction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have like a special...
My own little private concert
Yes.
going on in my head.
Yes. And, there's that saying, everything thinks they look great in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're like...
Yeah, the photos are always
Oh!
a little different.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Your bone-conducted voice is kind of like that mirror image.
Uh-huh.
And then the recording is more like the photo.
Okay.
They're both you.
I like that analogy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but they're showing different sides. Yeah, and sometimes you don't like what you see in the photo.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay, so that makes a lot more sense. But it still doesn't really explain why it feels so emotionally jarring
Right.
to hear my own voice on recording.
Yeah.
It's not just, oh, that sounds a little different. It's
Yeah.
like almost like this mini existential crisis.
That's because our brain has spent our entire life associating our voice with that lower-pitched bone-conducted version.
Okay.
It's part of how we perceive ourselves.
Right.
And so when we hear this other version, our brain is like, wait a minute, who is this?
Yeah, it's like my brain is playing like a sonic prank on me.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And, it's important to remember everyone else is hearing that version all the time.
Right. And they seem fine with it.
Yeah, they're fine.
Okay.
It's just we're not used to it.
It's just us.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask then, what about professional singers?
Okay.
They always sound incredible, whether they're singing live or I'm listening to them on a recording. Are they like immune to this whole bone conduction thing?
Well, it's not that they're immune. It's that they've actually trained themselves to listen outside of their heads.
Oh, wow.
So they're focusing on how their voice sounds through the air,
Interesting.
the way their audience is hearing it.
Okay.
So they're kind of bypassing that bone conduction.
Wow, they've trained themselves to hear differently.
Yeah, they have.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So is there anything that like the average person can do to kind of train our brains to not freak out when we hear our voice on, say, a recording?
There is.
Yeah.
You can actually retrain your brain to accept your recorded voice.
Okay.
It takes practice, but the more you speak and you record yourself and you listen back, the less jarring that difference is going to be over time.
So like anything else, practice makes perfect,
Maybe not perfect, but
but better.
yeah, better.
Okay.
It's kind of like, when you try a new food for the first time,
Okay.
it might seem strange.
I like where this is going.
and unfamiliar.
Okay.
But the more you eat it, the more your taste buds adjust, and then you actually start to like it.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same idea.
So instead of being afraid of my voicemails, I just need to listen to more of them, and I'll eventually be okay with it.
Exactly. You'll develop a taste for it.
I like it. Every voice has its own unique flavor profile.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm already feeling a lot less self-conscious about my recorded voice, thanks to this conversation.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. So this has been very helpful.
It's interesting. This whole conversation has made me think, about how much we rely on our internal perception of ourselves
Yeah.
and how easily it can be thrown off by, just hearing our voice played back.
Right. Because we spend so much time in our own heads listening to that bone-conducted version of ourselves.
Exactly.
It's no wonder it feels so weird to hear this other version of ourselves.
It really does raise questions about, the nature of perception and how we experience the world.
Okay, so I have to ask, is there anyone out there who actually prefers their recorded voice?
It's a good question.
Like, are there people walking around thinking, man, I sound great on tape?
I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say that,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be surprised if there were some people who genuinely prefer their air-conducted voice.
Okay.
Everyone's auditory perception is a little bit different. And so maybe for some people, that air-conducted version actually aligns more with how they think they sound.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say I'm someone who is really struggling with that recorded voice dissonance.
Okay.
Is there anything I can do besides just listening to myself on repeat and hoping it gets better?
Definitely. So one thing that you can do is try to shift your focus away from the sound of your voice.
Okay.
And instead concentrate on the content of what you're saying.
So it's not the sound, it's the words.
It's the message, yeah.
The meaning.
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in how we sound.
Right.
But communication is really about, sharing ideas and emotions and connecting with other people.
Okay, that's a good tip.
And another thing you can try is to use headphones
Okay.
when you're recording and listening back.
Okay.
This can kind of help to create a more immersive experience, and it might actually reduce the perceived difference
Interesting.
between that internal and external voice.
So it's like tricking my brain.
Yeah, a little bit.
Got it.
Into thinking it's hearing bone conduction again.
But I feel like no matter what, there's always going to be that initial moment of surprise when you hear your voice played back.
Probably.
It's just inevitable.
Yeah.
You're encountering this other version of yourself.
But, the important thing to remember is that it's not, that your recorded voice is bad. It's just different, and everyone else who knows you is used to hearing you that way.
It's just me.
Yeah, it's just you who's like, wait, what?
It's that inner critic in my head who's like, ooh, really?
Yeah, I think we all have that.
I'm picturing it with like a little tiny microphone and
Yeah.
headphones, just like analyzing everything.
I love it.
But hopefully this conversation has helped to like quiet that inner critic a little bit. So, what if we could only choose one way to hear our own voice?
Oh.
Bone conduction or air conduction?
Ooh.
Which one would you pick?
That's a really good question.
Like, what version of ourselves would we want to live with?
I think I would go with air conduction.
Okay.
I mean, I really do like the richness and depth of the bone-conducted voice.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think I'd rather just hear myself the way everyone else does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just feels more authentic.
Right. It's like, do you want to have your own private concert?
Yeah.
Or do you want to be part of like the big chorus?
The big chorus, yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
I think so.
So we're team air conduction.
Yes.
Okay, good.
We're on the same page.
I'm ready to embrace my true unfiltered voice.
Yes.
Even if it takes some getting used to. All right. So I'm trading in my solo concert for a spot in the chorus.
I like it. And remember, it's all about perspective.
Right.
And what might seem strange and unfamiliar now might become your new normal with time and little self-compassion.
That's true.
Our voices are always evolving, just like we are.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. It's amazing, right? Like we do this every day. We talk, but there's so much to it.
So much we don't think about.
I know. I'm definitely going to be thinking about my voicemails differently from now on.
Yeah, me too.
It's like not some weird tech glitch. Yeah, it's just how it works.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up our deep dive here, any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with about all this?
I would just encourage everyone to stay curious about everything, the world is full of these, like, interesting little things.
Even in the stuff we think we know, there's always more to discover.
Always more to learn.
And the next time you hear your voice on a recording, don't freak out.
Don't cringe.
Yeah, just, smile.
Just remember, that's how everyone else hears you. That's the you that everyone knows and loves.
You're part of the chorus.
You're part of the chorus. That's right.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this deep dive into why our voices sound different to us.
Keep those questions coming.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.